Hello and welcome. Today we have a look at how the new Panda Revamp is actually going to work, so let's get right to it. As you can see, I put up the 3 new stages of drunk system: sober, merry and worn out. The first state is the state you already start in, that is sober. It will give you a 1+ range. To enter the second state, you simply end your turn when carrying the bell and you enter merry state. As you can see, you will give more AP, crit and final damage when carrying the bell. If you continue to carry the bell at the end of your turn, you can then stay in that state for 5 turns. If you choose not to carry it, you will enter worn out, or after 5 turns you will enter worn out state. The third state is worn out state. It will give you 1 MP, a 20 block, 20 final resist, and however it will give you 20 minus % final damage. You can stay in worn out state if you want to tank for a while, simply just by ending your turn when holding the bell. You can then leave worn out state simply by placing the bell and not having it on you, and then you enter sober state again, and then the cycle will continue. Then last we have Dizzy. Dizzy is no longer a debuff on the enemy that lowers resist, and you no longer have to keep it on constantly. When you place it on the enemy, it will then stay on the enemy for actually the entire fight until you then choose to use a spell that actually consumes it. The first flaming spell is named Flaming Burp, and it is a kind of a AoE attack that does 3 cells wherever you hit it. It has a pretty decent range, and it will also decrease the enemy's resist by 5 for each DC you have on the target. I would say that it's an alright spell, but I would not recommend taking this one. Next up we have Light My Fire, probably the best panda spell in the game at the moment, I would say. It does a decent damage when you're hitting, and then it applies Scalton. Scalton is pretty much like a debuff you apply on the enemy, and it will stay there for 2 turns, so you actually need to reply it each turn or else it will disappear. And yeah, it stacks up to 1,000, so you can actually do 1,000 base damage on one target. So that's kind of insane. The way you activate it then is if you hit the bell, the bell will become inflamed, and then it will blow up the target. You can also make yourself inflame by using the jump ability. And here you can see if you really stack it all the way, it's gonna do a giant explosion, as you can see right here. Next up we have Dairy Springer. It has a high base damage, and as you can see, you can use that to move around the map. You will teleport to the location you click on. However, if you click on an enemy, you will not teleport to that location. It will also set you flaming, so that's always a good thing. So I would say this is a pretty decent spell. Next up we have Explosion Flask. Explosion Flask is like a small AoE area. It can only be cast in a straight line. It does alright damage for AoE, but one of the more interesting things is with it, you can actually run up and pick up an enemy and actually throw them like a grenade. What can actually make this spell useful in some occasions, but I don't think it's worth getting it just for that. Alright, the last fire spell is called Milking It. It will apply 5 DC on the target, and will actually also do more damage if you hit the target when the bell is actually inside the area. It is pretty decent damage for actually how big it hits, so I would say there's a alright fire spell for AoE. Alright, now let's have a look at the water brands, and the first spell is called Milky Breath. It is actually the highest base damage spells of all the panda spells. However, you can only use it 3 times each turn. However, it also have another kind of an interesting mechanic, that if you pick up your allies and then actually use the spells to throw them, you will actually heal your allies. So I would say this is probably one of the best spells to actually get. Definitely if you're water, you need this spell. Alright, the next water spell is called Splash of Milk. It's a single target damage spell that will apply 4 DC on the target. It also has a second effect that if you throw it on the bell, it will create a circle around it. No, not a circle, a square around it. If anyone stands in that in the start of the panda's turn, they will get healed from quite a decent amount. Alright, the next water spell is called Bubble Trouble. Single target damage spell that also consumes DC on the target. For each DC consumed, you will gain 10 dodge. You can also use it on the bell for AoE, however the damage is quite low, so I will not recommend the spell. Now for the water heavy hitter spell, Milk Wave. If you hit the bell with it, you will do a giant AoE, it does actually good damage. If you hit a single target with it, it will actually also do good damage. However, it will also consume the DC effect on the target and lower its resist by 1 turn, or into it becomes the panda's turn again. If you use it on an ally, it will do actually a giant heal, and for each DC on it, it will heal 15% more. So you can actually heal 225% more. So I would say this is one of the stronger water spells. Next up we have Milk Fountain. It's a AoE spell with a really good range, and you can hit it pretty much anywhere. And if you actually hit the bell with it, it would actually attract anyone who are in the area of effect. It would also attract allies. And it also adds 6 DC on the target. Alright, it's time for the Earth spell. The first Earth spell is called Tripling Hammering. If you pick up the bell, you will actually be able to attract the enemy by 2 cells. If you are not carrying the bell, you will actually push the enemy back by 1 cell. It doesn't do that great damage, but it's a pretty handy spell to actually have. Next up we have 6 Roses. It's probably one of the best Earth spells you can get at the moment. It would also play Scar on the target, so that's pretty nice. If you're carrying the bell, it will consume the Dizzy, and you will get 10 resist for each Dizzy consumed. If you're not carrying the bell, you will then place Dizzy on the target. So, yep, this is a pretty nice spell. Next up we have Bash Bell. It is a close range AoE in a square around you. It actually has a pretty high base damage. And if you are carrying the bell, you will then get 5 luck per Dizzy consumed. If you are not carrying the bell, you will then add 3 Dizzy to the target. Alright, next up is Liquid Acid. It has pretty low base damage, but if you're carrying the bell, it would do 10% more damage. It would also apply for Dizzy on the target. But here is where it becomes interesting. If you pick up an ally or an enemy, you can actually throw them by using the spell, and you will do a giant AoE. Everyone who's hit by this effect will lose 2 MP. Alright, the last Earth spell, Blitzkrieg. It actually has a pretty high damage, and if you carry the bell, it does even more damage. It will also set you into flaming, and it will also add 7 Dizzy to the target. However, if you actually carry the bell, you will also town portal to the area you actually are trying to get to. However, if you target an enemy, you will not teleport. I will highly recommend this spell for Earth users. The first active spell we're going to look at is called Karthik, and I'm probably butchering that name, so let's just ignore that. It costs 2 AP to pick it up, to pick up enemies or pick up allies or barrels or stuff like that. However, it's now free to actually throw it. And when you're carrying anything, actually, you are now getting 40 luck. So this is definitely a spell you need to have. Next up we have the Bell. The Bell now have 20% of the panda's maximum health, have the same resist as the panda, cannot be healed, and you can actually summon 2 bells now. That is pretty awesome. Next up we have Evo. If you level it, of course it has up to 4 range, but as you can see I didn't level it, so it doesn't have any range. However, if you throw it on yourself or allies or an enemy, it will stabilize the target and make so they cannot be locked for 1 round. It will also give them MP. Next up we have Bellhop. It pretty much is the same as before, however you can now only use it once each turn, and you will also get 50 dodge, and it will also set you into flaming after you use it. Next up we have Bamboozled. It will give you a close combat armor of 40% of your maximum health if you have maxed it. If you cast it on an ally, they will gain Happy Hour, healing 10% of their maximum health each turn for 3 turns. However, if you cast it on the bell, it will push everyone who stands near the bell 4 silverblocks back. This is one of the best spells for survival and kiting. Alright, when I talk about the panda's passive, I put a little video on you so you can see me, playing around with the panda a little. But alright, let's get into the passive. The first one is Incarnate Milk. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but never mind that. It gives you 50 dodge, and it gives you 40 area effect and distant damage. This is a pretty nice one if you are actually going for the AoE distant build, so I would say get this one if you're going for range build. Alright, Master of Mending, you will gain a second benefit from entering a state. Like when you enter Merry State, you will get 1 extra AP, and when you enter Worn Out, you will get 1 MP, and when you enter Sober, you will get 2 Wakfu. So this is kind of a way to make you want not to stay in the same state for too long. So you kind of want to switch around on it. Alright, next up we have Bottlenose Bell. It increases your maximum health of the bell by 50%. Also, if you're carrying the bell at the end of your turn, you will then heal for 12% of your lost health. I would say this is one of the ones I will get last, but that might just be me. Next up we have Aggressive Bell. Increases the range for how far away you can summon the bell, and also decrease how much it actually costs for you to pick up the bell. So now it only costs 1 Wakfu to pick up the bell. However, this also have a second really interesting effect. At the start of your panda's turn, square around the barrel, you will actually put 5 plus Dizzy on both enemies and allies. This is a really nice passive. Alright, the last passive is Milky Instinct. It will increase your luck by 60%, and also each time you consume 50 Dizzy on a target, you will regain 1 Wakfu back. And also the more interesting thing with this, if you're facing the bell at the end of your turn, you will actually pick up the bell for free. So this one can be really useful and pretty annoying. Alright, I hope you got a feeling for how the new Revamp Panda works. And I will soon throw around a guide on how I think you should level from 1 to 31 to, yeah, leveling. And actually a little higher level guide, so, stuff to do in higher level. So, yep, I hope this helped you, and, well, thank you for watching.